Hi, Hassan.
How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you.
So today we're welcoming Hassan
Yes.
to talk with us about seeking the inner being, our inner
Yes.
being.
Yes.
Are you in touch with your inner being? And if yes, how does it manifest for you?
Uh, I believe we all are. Speaking of myself, yes, I've always resonated with sort of an inner core that was not necessarily a part of a surface personality.
Mm-hmm.
That was wider, that was outside of myself. Um, Something that sort of defined logic, but was more intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was small, I've always felt that I've had this connection to
Right.
the inner being. Um, and it still resonates today strongly. And that's sort of my core of how I operate in the world, or how I try to operate in the world.
Mm.
Uh,
Do you recall any particular memories or events when you're talking of
mhm.
your smaller childhood or
Yes.
even later that you might like to share with us?
Yes. When I was 2 years old, I was able to stand on my head, which is a very difficult, I can still do it, yoga practice. And my parents, I have some audio tapes of that back in 1974 at Christmas, and they were like, why is he doing this? Oh, he's going to go in the Olympics. And it just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense, but it was something that I just, was called to do. And I felt as I got older,
Mm.
I began to look at more Eastern philosophies, which always resonated with me
Right.
for a myriad of reasons. And yeah, that was one of the first things I believe that was something that unfolded within myself,
Mm-hmm.
in my higher self. It's actually a very good asana to use.
Right.
Um, and more recently, it has been things such as, how can I say it, having gratitude
Mm-hmm.
amidst the turmoils or the mundane things in life,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and trying to always stay centered amongst the ups and downs of life, okay, sort of being in the middle and being aware, being conscious, and that to me is being in tune to what we consider our higher selves, because I think it's always there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
it's just a matter of awareness, um, of things that we have. I can uh, also recall intellectually, I will say three books, and I won't go into
Mm-hmm.
too much detail about those books, but three books that really helped transform my life.
Mm-hmm.
The first was The Tao of Physics, written by Fritjof Capra, who was a physicist who talked about the similarities between physics and Eastern philosophy. The second was The Temple of Man, okay, Mysteries of Ancient Egypt, written by a gentleman named Lubitz, who was an archaeologist, but more of a mystical archaeologist, and talked about how the spiritual system is within our own being, our own body is connected to the universal. And the third book was really helped me synthesize a lot was The Synthesis of Yoga by Sri Aurobindo,
Mm.
and was given to me as a gift in the early 2000s by a family member who didn't know anything about him,
Mm.
but she saw it and she said, I'd like to present. And that really, really changed my perspective and sort of brought me to Oroville, connected me to Oroville.
Right. So would it be right to say that you've always had that connection, so you don't really have this aha moment of where it happened, but then you got like some sort of explanation and you were able to put some sense behind it when you read the books you were just
It's a
mentioning?
perfect way to put it. That it
Right.
brought cohesion, particularly
Right.
the synthesis of yoga and integral yoga with
Mm-hmm.
Sri Aurobindo. And then, reading The Mother and how their concepts were much more practical and tangible, and how to incorporate those into your everyday life. And I thought that
Mm.
made a lot of sense. It was something that I felt, but I couldn't necessarily articulate until I came upon those
Yeah.
the philosophy here.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that was standing out?
In the concept of involution, many people are familiar with evolution or even a spiritual evolutionary process where the way is up and our consciousness is expanding and growing. But involution, I thought was brilliant, and it's one of the almost unique aspects of integral yoga, where you're looking at the divine consciousness or the spiritual consciousness coming into the material. And I thought that was just such a profound but simple concept. You think of a banyan seed or an oak tree, for example, the seed of an oak tree. And what involution, just to give a really small description of the information that is needed for that small tiny seed to sprout into this magnificent, huge, strong, stable tree is already there. It's already planted there. So symbolically, that is what I see in the human reality, is that the spiritual you consciousness, as we like to call it, is already there, but it needs to unfold.
Right.
It's laying dormant. But under the right circumstances and the right awareness, it unfolds in a beautiful way.
So how does it unfold in your reality?
How does it? It unfolds in my reality by, I think, a wider perspective and connection with others. As I've gotten older, I've always I consider myself a pretty good listener. But listening, not just with the ears, but listening with our total self, being present with others. And that helps me to really connect on a profound level with people that are sometimes it's beyond words, understanding and knowing things about people that they're like, well, how did you know that? It's just, I just knew, some stories, and sometimes it scared myself because I wasn't able to control it. I wasn't doing it. There would be an energy there, a level around people, and they would just open up and they would ask me, I was like, yeah, I see that. And they would, how did you know that? I don't know. Right. So it's experiential. So with that happening very lucidly, very clearly, a couple of times, it made me have faith in that psychic self, that it was there without a shadow of a doubt, not in an intellectual way, but in an experiential way. And that's really how it unfolds for me.
So you would always be able to count on it.
Always be able to count on it. Being quiet, being centered. I call it the winds of grace are always around all of us, but it's a matter of honing into that and paying attention to that. Now, it's obviously we're a work in progress. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. And there are times when I really need to call on that. But overall, I try to make that my foundation. I try to make that my basis of relating to others and relating to the world.
Yeah, winds of grace. I like that. It's a beautiful expression, really.
Yes. I have a tattoo of that here. It's in Japanese, but it's of the wind. And I've always felt that, symbolically, not just the wind, but those winds are around us all the time.
Yeah, that's also quite a nice expression for the presence you were describing, right?
Yes.
It's really quite something. Were there ever any challenges or pitfalls for you on your journey?
Many.
I mean, in regards to that.
Yes, in regards to that. First of all, growing up I grew up in South Jersey, so it was suburbs of South Jersey, it's a conservative area, but when I was growing up, yoga, metaphysics, that wasn't this sort of in thing. It wasn't the most popular thing that was around. So I had to sort of feel my own way in learning these deeper philosophies or becoming in touch with my higher psychic self that we talk about in integral yoga. there was always this desire to meditate. It was just in me, you know.
Mm.
So I just started. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to do it, and I just, you know, started from there until I was able to contact uh, people who had a more professional understanding of what meditation was. So that's always been a big key for me as well. But the challenges, you know, are listening to that inner voice when the outer circumstances may not be so conducive for the centeredness of the inner self. There's a
Mm.
lot of noise going around. Years later, I began working for some international organizations and going into really, I was also in the military before that.
All right. Yeah.
And that was not, you know, and I did that just to travel and,
Mm.
you know, for some sense of independence when I was young, sort of an impetuous
Mm.
thing I did. But that's really not an environment that fosters a lot of inward thinking and meditative thought processes and reaching, you know, for your higher self. So within those situations, I was able to again go inside myself, the inner eye, and thinking of a lotus in the midst of a swamp. That's always been another valuable symbol for me. That we can blossom, we can bloom, and we can grow and flourish in the midst of not so tranquil circumstances and situations.
Mm.
Working in some refugee camps in countries such as Somalia and Sri Lanka, where you had conflict going on,
Mm.
it causes you to question the larger plan and divine plan. And it never had me doubt that there was a higher purpose in the spiritual realm. But others that were around me, you know, would say, look at this and look how horrible it is. And you know, where's God in the midst of
Mm.
genocide and
Yeah.
perpetual brutality? Rwanda was another place I worked in processing refugees. And to see that darkness and that ugliness, you really have to step outside of ourselves, you know, meditation, and seeing that there, even in this dark trials and tribulations, there's some unfoldment that we can learn from that.
Yeah.
The Bhagavad Gita has always been a source of my strength, and seeing that, you know, that I believe that we live many lives.
Mm.
I'm almost sure of that and certain of that. So even when things seem dark and heinous in this life, there's a reason for it, that there's an unfoldment for it, that there's a learning progress
Mm.
for it, and to be in the midst of that, not to be
Right.
bitter and not to lose a sense of faith and
Yeah.
hope. So those have been very challenging things to, you know,
Yeah.
maintain
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah. I
centeredness.
hear that.
Yeah.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned a lot of meditation
Mm-hmm.
and reading as your practices.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any practices that you could recommend to our
Yes.
audience?
Yes. Uh, for me, and like I
Yeah.
said, I want to be clear on this. There are many roads and paths to reach the top of the mountain. So
Mm.
I'm never one to say, well, this is the way, the truth. There are many ways to get there. But for myself, something called anapanasati meditation. Um, and it's simply just being aware of the breath. I met a monk in Sri Lanka,
Mm.
and he said that's it shows you this is our connection to life,
Mm.
this is our connection to the divine, this is our connection to our higher selves. So just not forcing anything, but being aware of our breath. And I do a meditation for 40 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes in the evening for myself, you know, and I rarely miss it. No matter what's going on, I find the time to do that.
Mm.
No excuses. It's a great discipline for me, and it helps to center me. The
Mm.
second thing is, again, I believe in the simplicity of higher consciousness. You know, we make it oftentimes more complicated than it has to be.
Yeah.
But gratitude, no matter what's going on, try to find in the morning something to have gratitude
Mm.
uh, about. Second thing is thinking of others. When you wake up, who can I don't want to say serve, but who can I help, or give a smile to, or call a person, hey, how are you doing? Not thinking about ourselves so much, but thinking, always trying to think of others. And the third thing is being in the moment, trying to be in the present moment. That really helps. It's not easy. It's a challenge, but the more you practice it, I think, like anything else, the easier it becomes. And those three things work magic for me. Four things, should I say: the breath meditation, and the three things of gratitude, thinking of others, and being in the present moment. It really facilitates to me that road to our psychic and our conscious self.
Wow, wow, yeah. Sounds amazing. Well, I think we've covered about everything. I'm just wondering, is there anything, any insights, anything we have not mentioned so far that you would like to add on or to conclude our
Yes,
little talk here?
yes. One magical experience that I've recently had here was visiting the Matra Mandir. And I heard about it. I didn't want to go in with any preconceived notions or expectations. But sitting there was really special. It was nuanced but very powerful. And I felt a sense of universal consciousness sitting in there, inside the Matra Mandir. It really sort of opened up almost a portal of, like I said, centeredness and peacefulness, and helping one to step outside of oneself. It was, so I was really impressed with that, and that will be an experience that I won't forget.
Wow. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with us, Hassan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.